Okay. Welcome to BirdTricks Tuesday. Oh, we're sick and sniffly and in a hotel. And
it's a nice hotel.
A 9-hour drive.
And a show tomorrow.
Happy BirdTricks Tuesday.
So today we're going to be talking about flying your parrots with other people. It's a conversation that needs to be had because it's not really happening out there and it's causing a lot of different problems.
Yeah, so the first rule of thumb is to basically not be scared that you have a list of rules, and don't be nervous to present them or talk ahead of time before you even meet the person that you're going to fly with. We developed the levels of flying so that free flyers could talk to each other in kind of a common language and understand where your bird's level of skills are at compared to somebody else's. So if you have a level 1 flyer, you just got outside, you're used to flat open spaces, and you're looking at flying with somebody who has a bird at a level 3, they can definitely come down to your level, so to speak, and fly at a level 1 with you, and you guys can have a great time. You, however, jumping up to a level 3 is not the best idea. So that's kind of why we have that language, to be able to communicate to other flyers where your bird's at, what it needs to work on, and then having those upfront conversations ahead of time. There's a lot of details that go into this, and what we've found is just being open and honest and upfront about your bird's abilities is really the better way to go, so that you don't run into problems.
Just got a flashback of the video with Caroline. Hi, nice to meet you. Are we going to be chasing your birds today?
Honesty.
But it was up front. So those are the kind of things that we need to discuss. So, you know, I mean, if we're watching other people's birds and what they do, it gives you a little bit of an idea what you might be getting into.
Yeah, I found I actually prefer to go out with people and watch them fly their birds first before ever taking mine out, just to kind of get a feel of how it's going, how those people are with their birds. Do they have their treats out in the open? Do they have them concealed in a pouch like we do? What are they using? Are they even using treats? Are they using GPS? Are they using a whistle as a contact call or as an emergency recall? Just kind of to see how that person does everything that they do in their training, so that we can have those conversations of certain things that might clash, like the GPS or the fact that I use the same whistle or any of those things, or treats. Also, one of our rules, just to put it out there, is that if our birds land on you, that is okay, but we prefer that nobody gives them food rewards, that food rewards only come from us. So that's a huge thing for us. We want people to respect that and not give our birds treats. And also, we usually like to recall our birds off of people that they do land on, or have those people kind of face us, turn towards us, and give our birds like a little enthusiastic, hey, that's your person.
A gentle toss with the option to hold on.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we roll. But I do know that just from flying with other people, that some people want you to get out of the way, dodge, not let their bird ever land on you. Other people want you to do things where you like wave something in the air to keep their bird from landing on you. I have to say, even if you're uncomfortable with these certain scenarios, you need to respect that that's that person's rules, and if you choose to fly with them, you need to go by their rules. If you're not comfortable with them, don't fly with that person.
Let me paint a little bit of a picture of why we allow our birds to land on people that are kind of in our group or our flock for that moment. If Jamie's flying JINX and I'm flying TUSA, and every time they land, we give them a little break and we send them again, eventually they're going to realize that, hey, if they come back and they land on us, we're going to send them again. Well, when they're tired, if you're by yourself and you're constantly throwing your bird, that will result in a fly-off, because the bird's going to say, hey, I can't come back to you because you're going to throw me. I don't want to come back. And so for us, because we do give a pretty high sense of encouragement to send our birds, if they come back and our birds, like, all of a sudden TUSA's landing on Jamie and JINX is landing on me, it's a pretty clear sign for the two of us to realize, oh, okay, they're probably done. But if we were like shooing them away, we're like, no, you can't land on me, well, then they're not going to come back. So it's really important for us, for our entire group, to recognize that, like, when we're out flying as a club, they land on whoever. They don't typically ever choose to want to go to those people unless they need it. And that could be from just, you know, they don't have the stamina, so they're trying to come back. They don't want to land on the cactus or on something unfamiliar. They want to land on a person. So we'll just allow them to land on us and then find the owner and either give them a gentle toss to the owner or just simply go take them to the owner. Depends on the bird's situation. But I think it's important to understand the reasoning behind why we do that and for your knowledge. But again, like Jamie's saying, when we go out and we're flying with other people, we just say that up front, like, hey, if our bird lands on you, or this is great too, when we have a photographer come with us, say, hey, if the bird lands on you, just wait, don't try to grab him. He'll bite you if you try to grab him, so just hang out. I'll come get him. And just so everybody's on the same page.
Because sometimes within our group or within somebody else's group, you do have non-bird people. So bird people that don't necessarily have their own bird there. They're just kind of there to watch. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a photographer. And I like to know everybody's comfort zones, especially, you know, this going outside of bird people to bird people. When we go to a park or somewhere where we're going to fly and I notice other people around, whether they have dogs or whatever, I just like to open the conversation and just say like, hey, I planned on flying my bird here. Are you okay with birds? Is there anything that would make you uncomfortable? Is that all right? What is your dog like? Is it staying on a leash? You know, where are you guys planning to go? And I just like to have an open conversation so that if they are planning to leave in 5 minutes, I'll just wait 5 minutes instead and do it when they're not there. But if they want to stay and watch, that's all good. I want to make sure that they aren't going to flail and freak out if my bird comes close to them or may land on them. It's not likely, but I'd like to put it out there. Because like with animals, when you don't put it out there, that's the time it's going to happen. But just having those open, honest conversations and respecting everybody's rules, because everybody does have different types of rules. And if you are choosing to go fly with those people, you do need to be respectful of those.
And there's just lots of different types of flying. You know, we call our style freestyle flying, and that's basically where they go out, they do some laps, they hang out, maybe do a few more laps, and then we're done. The at liberty flying is where you let the bird out all day, so it's going to be a different dynamic if the birds are landing on you or not. So for example, we have some friends that do the at liberty flying, so when we go fly together, we need to just be on the same page.
Definitely.
Now some people fly with a whistle and they'll use it as either a contact call or an emergency recall. So this is really important to have that conversation up front too. For example, one of our friends, a couple of them now, are using it as a constant contact with the bird. And that's fine unless we're flying and we use ours as an emergency recall, meaning every time that our bird hears that certain whistle, they know that like a banana is coming and they don't get that more than once a year or whatever it is. So it's like, hey, there's an eagle in the area, there's a threat, there's cars coming, there's a dog, or whatever. We blow that whistle, the bird comes back to us and gets this treat that it's looking forward to that it doesn't get very often. So there's a couple of ways to work around it. We had one of our fans sent us this awesome package from Fox 40 Whistles, and we had talked about how we use Fox 40 whistles because they don't get stuck, they don't get gummed up. And so we recommended it, and it was really cool that she saw this. She had some connections with the company and sent us a variety of them, which was interesting because then we saw for the first time they have different pitches and sounds and different
uses
different
for
notes.
them, which was really, really cool. Different tones, and we had no idea there was such variety, which is really cool because this means that flyers can use different types of whistles, different sounds, and then also different patterns of how they use their whistles. So we have a friend, Peggy, in Florida, and she uses hers as a contact call, but she does a really specific whistle, and it's like this tube type of whistle, really unique. And so I think the more unique you can go with that sort of thing, the less you're going to run into issues of somebody else doing the exact same thing.
What she said.
The other topic we want to bring up, which is a big one and probably the one that I think about the most, is flying a timid flyer against a dominant flyer. Now, what does a dominant flyer look like? It's a bird that flies a lot, has really good stamina and strength, and can basically push your bird, if you have a timid bird or a new flying bird, out of the area. So dominant birds tend to fly really close to other birds. They'll tend to bump them in the air. They can get in between the owner and the bird and just kind of push it out further and further. It can lead to fly-offs if your bird isn't a strong, confident flyer who will push back or just leave the sky. A lot of our birds will choose not to fly with dominant flyers, like Comet, and they will just leave the flight pattern and they will just come back and they'll choose not to fly. I was at a really cool location we went to recently called Dino Tracks. And it's way up on a cliffside. It's about a level 4, very hard to recover. JINX wasn't choosing to fly among the company that I was with. I was surrounded by a lot of dominant flyers. And so he was just resting on my knee. I was chatting with some friends, and one of the dominant flying birds came by and body slammed him right off my leg, off the cliff. Luckily he can fly. He flew, but he was real ticked about it. You could tell he was just screaming. And he was off the cliff, and I looked down, and this dominant flyer was actually on my knee now and then took off. And JINX did not want to participate. He actually ended up going to a tree because I was not prepared for having him fly right at that exact moment. So I didn't stand up. I was surrounded by people on the edge of a cliff, and I was like sitting down. So as soon as we got ready to go, I called him down, and he came down. But that just goes to show he's a very skilled flyer, but he chooses not to fly with dominant birds. And then we recently went back to that location, and he had a great time with Zelina, a military macaw who is in our flight club, and that was a really, really great time. So just being aware of how those certain flyers will affect your birds. Flying around at Liberty birds can be difficult because they are in such amazing shape and stamina that they tend to get a little pushy sometimes, especially with birds that don't have that confidence and aren't out all day.
I'm noticing too, there's a trend, and there's not really enough data on this to say with 100% certainty, but I am seeing it very, very frequently where people who have one bird and they fly that bird a lot by itself, those typically end up being the birds that struggle in a new group dynamic and become kind of the bully of the group, and will try to knock that bird out of the sky or result in a fly off by pushing it further than it's capable of. And so just as you're planning your flight trip, let that be a subtle reminder that if somebody only has one macaw, for example, I guess they're all kind of macaws that I'm thinking of, that become these dominant flyers, but if they only have the one, kind of think, okay, this might be a situation where their bird might be more of a dominant flyer, and how does that relate for you? We also want to bring up the point of observational learning. So Bandit learned the rock out from watching Bondi do it. He was like, oh, you get a treat for doing that? I'll do my version of it. And so it got reinforced because it was adorable. A for effort. It wasn't quite accurate, but it was good. And so what happens is we want to work with people who have a single bird. So Zelina, for example, about a year ago, or not even a year ago, it wasn't that long ago, but she wasn't used to flying around other birds. In fact, she was kind of timid to other birds. So what we did is we took one of our birds and we said, okay, there's some distance, just like with the power paws, there's some distance where she's going to be okay with the presence of another bird. It might be 100 yards, might be 100 feet, might be 100 centimeters, but there's some distance where she's going to be okay with it. And so what we would do is we would go out, we're in the middle of a dried out lake bed, and we flew Zelina from an A to B, from, I believe, from the husband to the wife, and then I flew COMET A to B as well, really far away at the same time doing A to B. And then we got a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. And what that did, at first it spooked Zelina and she'd do an exploratory and come back.
Almost every time.
And then she got used to it and realized that, okay, another bird in the air doesn't mean I need to go leave. It just meant, oh, okay, there's a macaw, nothing to worry about. Where this can be important, not only is it important for your own parrots, your own flock, but also we flew with some people, man, almost a decade ago, whose macaw was terrified of ravens, and the bird flew off, and he went looking for it, and 4 hours later still couldn't find it until he drove off in his truck and the bird came down to the truck. So macaws shouldn't be afraid of ravens. The ravens aren't going to be an issue in most cases, and so we want to introduce new students' birds with our birds who are desensitized to ravens. So what happens, our group dynamic, they're all used to these other birds, they're all used to the ravens, so you don't get a fly off from a bird being spooked. They're smart enough to realize the difference between, okay, a hawk is chasing me, I should leave, versus like, hey, there's a bird in the air, I should leave.
Yeah, and most of the time with ravens, you're just dealing with a little bit of being territorial. But for the most part, they will leave you alone. They understand that you're temporary, you're not moving in on their nesting sites.
Or the one that looked at Bondi like, what the hell are you?
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they are quite curious. Even buzzards can be very curious and like come down pretty low. And you want to make sure that your bird associates that with not like a complete threat where it needs to flee, but that it always knows that it can come to you for that safety. And that is why we use our birds with our students' birds to really introduce that and use that observational learning. So being picky and having higher standards about who you fly around is totally okay. If you want to stick to your style and people that use your style, I feel like those mesh the best. It's really hard to mesh birds of different styles together. I find that our birds will usually just not participate with at liberty birds. And so to me, it's not as fun because I had more fun going up to dino tracks and watching JINX go play with Zelina down in the canyons than I did where he wouldn't participate. And so I find more fun and value in that. And even though those experiences are fun, and that is kind of why I say, like, take some time and watch those people with their birds, see how their birds are, watch the behavior, and analyze it before you take your bird out and say, like, is this going to benefit my bird? Do I want my bird to act like that? Do I think that my bird's going to enjoy this? Or is this something that I'm doing for other reasons that are maybe a little bit more self-serving? So just keep your bird's safety and utmost, like, your bird as your priority for whether or not it's a good idea to do that circumstance.
Yeah. And then earlier on you mentioned GPS.
Yes.
And so we'll go way deeper into this now. We're very excited, and in fact, I think we can put the link in here. Marshall Radio, their GPS units are now available as the BirdTricks package, and there's a link on their website. They did say when you call in or order, just mention BirdTricks package, and they will include a free dummy unit. The dummy unit's really important because when you're putting on a new bird, you don't want to have them destroy the really expensive GPS unit. You put the tail mount on, you put the dummy unit on overnight, and just let the bird get used to it. They might preen it, they might bend the antenna, but it's the fake one anyway. So that's where I like to push that because I don't want to ruin a really expensive GPS unit.
Well, and also we just learned that the antenna itself is replaceable.
Yes,
so for like
$9,
you can, if they do destroy the antenna, you can get another one. The other thing though, in relation to this video's topic, is that if multiple people are using GPS, that can get a little messy, right?
Yes, you want to make sure that there's a ton of frequencies that your receiver or transceiver and the GPS that's on the bird will communicate with. And you want to make sure that your frequency is different than somebody else's frequency. So just check it real quick in the app. This is something we'll go into in greater detail later when we actually do the GPS video. But that is one extra thing to pay attention to. Also, don't be afraid when you open up the app, it says, oh, caution, another bird is near. This equipment was designed for falconers. So if two falconers were hunting in the same area, it's potentially an issue if one of their raptors wants to go after the other raptor. So that does have a warning. It just means that somebody in your group is flying near as well. But they have tons and tons of frequencies, so almost limitless as far as the possibilities go. So you don't need to worry about having too many people using GPS. You just need to make sure that you're running it on your own frequencies so that you don't have any interference problems.
Yeah, and also it's something that we've been using it more and more, and we have units where we allow our new students to use our units for those first days out because it's just a nice little blanket. And it's been cool to find out which flyers are using GPS now and which ones are not. So I think that that's another valid question that you should ask up front when you're thinking about flying with somebody else. You know, what method of training do they use? Are they using a GPS so that you guys are on the same page? Do they use a whistle? What are their rules? If your bird lands on me, what would you like me to do? Is kind of the upfront question that you should be asking. Are your birds friendly? Do your birds like other birds? You know, we flew with a macaw that hated Amazon parrots, and I did not realize it when I had invited one of our flyers out to join us. And I had, of course, made sure that that was okay with the flyer that we were already with. I was like, hey, our friend's in the area, she has an Amazon, is that cool? And then it kind of came out later when the macaw was attacking the Amazon that the macaw didn't like Amazons. And so knowing that kind of stuff up front so you can avoid potential problems is really key here. And that's why I am such a blunt upfront person, is I just don't want it to be miscommunicated later. It's like, oh, well, I didn't know what you meant. Like, you knew, you know, everyone knows what I mean.
Yes.
So just having those conversations, because after all, we're all just trying to do the best by our birds. So if you have your bird's best intentions at heart, the other person should as well, and you guys should respect the questions that you need to ask to make sure that that flying outing goes safely.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, A lot of people experience fly-offs or temporary fly-offs because of adding the group dynamic. So approach it properly, and some of these questions should be able to help you guys have a lot of success if and when you do get your birds outside free flying.
Cool.
Nailed it.
We like didn't have any outtakes. That's crazy. Oh, now we do.